our next speaker is Michael Mealing. He's going to be talking about readiness levels. Mr. Mealing's experiences with building solutions for markets that do not exist, including some of the internet's basic systems in the early 90s RFID-enabled supply chain management in the early 2000s and a groundbreaking commercial space company in 2005. It's our pleasure to welcome Michael Mealing here.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, perfect.
So what I'm going to be talking about today is something that we pull from the internet way of doing business in a lot of cases, something called, based heavily on something called the lean startup model, which is, in that world, the definition of a startup is an organization whose number one job is discovering a viable business model. If you can increase the magnification on the screen, either Alt plus, there you go. That's better. Thank you. Perfect. Actually, scroll up and include the, actually down, I'm sorry. Include the, yep, there you go. Perfect. Thank you. One of the things that we do at Starbridge Venture Capital, which is the VC fund that I'm general partner with, is we're a space-focused fund, and because of that, we see a lot of companies. We were just on the phone with Northern Sky Research, and currently within the industry, they are tracking over 700 space companies in various forms. And as you can imagine, trying to figure out which ones to invest in and which ones not to invest in gets to be a little bit of a task. One of the things that we focus on is whether or not the market is actually ready for this particular startup and the product they are trying to develop. And that really goes to one of the core problems we have in our sector, which is we have a large number of companies run by engineers that are looking for someone to fund their personal favorite science project, as opposed to actually finding a customer that has a problem that is bad enough that that customer is willing to throw large buckets of money at you to solve. Those are businesses. The first case are science projects. And so we wanted a way to be able to educate companies that were pitching us on how we do that valuation and how they can measure themselves against this. At the same time, we were in conversations with both NASA and some folks inside the National the Science and Technology Policy Institute that works with the Office of Science and Technology Policy within the White House in advising the federal government on technology policy and when things are investable. Because both organizations were looking for ways to help NASA do things without increasing their budget. And so the question NASA kept coming back to the VC industry with was, how do I get you to fund the stuff that I need? And our answer was always, when there's a customer other than just you. Because NASA by itself does not generate returns that a venture fund can make a living at. And so we were trying to educate both NASA and the companies that we invest in or that pitch to us on that process. And that's where these market readiness levels came up. And the website I put into the chat for the meeting on how to get access to the paper. And it's based on several other models that are fairly similar, but we kind of distilled it down into these 9 steps. And so this is really meant to go along with NASA's technology readiness levels. There are other types of metrics out there for evaluating team readiness, firm readiness, and all of those things come together and can tell you whether or not a venture is investable or not. Unlike technology readiness levels, which are really meant to, you progress incrementally throughout the list of TRLs. And it's considered to be a problem if you have to go backwards. That means something has failed and you have to start over. In market readiness levels, there are several steps along the way between from 0 to 9, where the intent is that you iterate over several of these levels several times. It's a learning process. So what I'm going to really start out is a quick review of the steps. And anybody that's done any work with internet startups or software or anything like that will recognize several of these terms. The first step is step 0. You think you have an idea, and that's all you have. You have done a little bit of existing market research on Google. You may have talked to a few friends and made a few phone calls to find out whether or not you're smoking crack or not. You're generally like, okay, this is something I'm going to spend some time on. The first thing that you really should do is write down what you think the value proposition is. What problem do you think you are solving, and what value are you creating? How you go about doing that is something you should not be thinking about. Is, have I discovered a problem? And that's where we get to the next step. And the levels we use depend greatly on something called the business model canvas. That's a way of mapping out your business model. It's who your customers are, what segments, how you segment it, what channels you use to get access to those customers, how they pay, who your suppliers are, who are your core partners that you need to be able to realize that value proposition, etc. The canvas is really divided sort of into 2 pieces. The right-hand side of the model is very customer focused. The left-hand side of the model is very focused on your costs and your competitors and your suppliers. So what you do with the step 2 is you want to start filling out the right-hand side of the business model, which is really saying, this is my value proposition. These are the people that I think would have that problem, how I might access them. And then from that point, you use just that side. You're not looking at a solution yet. You're really only validating whether or not anybody cares about what you're doing. And so you use the right-hand side of the model to identify customers that you want to talk to. And from there, you build out the entire customer discovery process, which is an art in and of itself. Step 3 is something that you are going to iterate on many times. Step 3 is not about convincing a customer that you have something that you want to sell them. The challenge that we find over and over in the space sector is companies will tell you that they have done some customer discovery, and what you discover is they were trying to sell something. The number 1 technique for doing customer discovery correctly is to shut your mouth and listen to the customer. You should not be going into step 3 with any solution in mind. Your goal for step 3 is to learn as much as possible about the customer and how they see the world and what problems they see from their point of view. Once you have exited step 3 with a large amount of learning, and that's the goal, is documented proof that the customer has a problem that they care deeply about. At that point, you can actually start thinking about the solution for that A solution, not the A solution that you may have to iterate on. What we call an MVP, minimum viable product, and especially in step 4, a low fidelity MVP. is really about going back to the customer with something and says, is this what you were talking about? You should never make money on a lo-fi MVP. If at all possible, you should do something that we call flintstoning, which means faking it. If you have to build a prototype, then it is perfectly fine for that prototype to only demonstrate how the solution would work, not actually that it does. In a technology sphere, you may have to be able to get over the hump with the customer to show, yes, theoretically this is possible. There's still a lot of engineering that still needs to be done. But right now, we're just trying to find out is, did we understand what you said in step 3 well enough to be able to build something that you think is approximately a solution? You are generally going to iterate between steps 3, 4, and 5 many times. Getting to the point where you do your lo-fi MVP campaign in step 5, if you do not go back to step 3 and redo the customer discovery process based on the outcome of step 5, you are probably doing it wrong. That would be considered an error in this model. After that, one of the things you do next is start developing the metrics and evaluations that allow you to validate your business model canvas, and then start building, after you've iterated several times between steps 3 and 5, you start building a high fidelity MVP. That is when you actually start building something that approximates a solution that could eventually, maybe one day, if you're really, really lucky, go to market. That may actually provide some way of allowing the customer to buy something. At this point, you're testing out other parts of your business model, not your product, your business model, which includes how you charge, how much you charge, what other kinds of support services you're doing. Do your channel partners understand what you're doing? Can your suppliers actually deliver what you need? You take all of that from your high fidelity MVP and those metrics in the MVP campaign in step 7, validate all of your learnings, and you should at step 8 be able to fill out a fully documented and proven business model canvas. At that point, you are in step 9, have sufficient information to make a launch decision. If you do decide that you do indeed want to go to market with the product that you've run through this process, you now have what's called what we call the product iteration. You have the metrics. As you start going to market, you look at your metrics and how they perform, your KPIs. You are going to be fine-tuning your product as you go into market, because you will be learning more and more and more as you get more and more customers that provide you additional information. The development of the product never ends. At points during the process, even after you've gone to market, you may run through this entire MRL process on features, add-on markets, add-on products, and even tangential customers in other market segments. So unlike a TRL, this is an iterative process at several different steps. One of the things that this model can teach you is, for example, if you have something that's a very high TRL level, but its MRL is stuck around 3 and 4 steps, you generally will have something that makes a nice science project, but will probably never make a viable business. It may be something where the business model is build it and they will come. If you have something that you have tested out and you are in levels 5 through 7, but the TRL level is very low, that indicates that you have a very good case for additional technology investment to be able to get something out of the lab and into the market, because that cost is justified. You have customers that really do want the product, and you can prove that and justify a technology investment. So those are some of the problems that something like this can solve. As an investor, in our case, we usually invest around level 5 and level 6. You've done a lo-fi MVP. The customer's like, oh, yes, please do this now. I love this. Yes, you read my problem, and I already have the buckets of money ready to go. That's when a firm like us invests. If you're a pre-seed investor, then you will probably look for something around step 3. Does the customer discovery look promising? Are these customers enthusiastic? But you still got a lot of learning, and you still have to build that lo-fi MVP. That's the seed stage. We have a lot of businesses in the space sector that are really at level 1 and 2, that are trying to build businesses. And we're hoping that something like this helps those businesses really realize that they're running science projects and not going concerns. So with that, I got about 10 minutes left. Definitely wanted to open it up for questions, because for a lot of people in the space sector, this is probably some kind of new concepts. Question in the room, in the chat: can we compare MRLs and TRLs of current space startups? Do they follow the model, or are they burning high? This gets to engineering-led versus business-led companies in the space sector. We have a lot of engineering companies that, if they are led by people who have some experience in the software world, they will understand this. But if you get somebody that's coming strictly from the aerospace world, this is very alien. And they will be they indeed will be burning cash trying to get to this high fidelity product before they ever determine if someone cares. You see a lot of this in the small launch vehicle market. So yeah, you can compare MRLs and TRLs, but they are different. The differences between the two, having the two numbers can really give you an idea as an investor or a potential user of this company or company's technology, give you an idea of where money needs to be invested in the company, what are the next steps of this company, what's the market pull, are you the only customer? If they've got a very high MRL level, and even if TRL level is low, as long as there is not risk that the technology just doesn't flat out work. One of the things that we've discovered in the software world is you can figure out a solution to something. It may not exactly match what the original idea was, but if a customer has a problem and you've identified that problem and it's important, really the rest is engineering. So I would strongly suggest that yeah, using MRLs and TRLs together is very valuable. Yeah, so yeah, thank you for the original TRL leveling. Any other questions?
I do want to point out that you know, we see a lot of TRL conversations, technology readiness level conversations in the space field. What Mealing and his team at Starbridge have done of trying to codify this market readiness concept, it's new. It shouldn't be new. We've been doing this for a long time. The space industry has been talking about commercialization for a long time, but codifying the MRL as a tool that other people can use, that's new, and it's frankly kind of long overdue. So hats off to y'all, Michael,
Thank you.
the rest of your team. I want to point out there's, you know, I was showing on the screen just the little blurb of it, but it's an 11-page paper that's actually pretty thoughtful and nuanced. So in the link that he provided above, definitely go grab that and actually read the thing, because there's more to it.
Yeah, I would also recommend looking through several of the papers that are in the bibliography. I do steal liberally. I do give credit, but there's a lot of additional useful information in those other papers. Some people call them demand readiness levels. There's others that get into ways of organizing it that I also stole. So there's the background is also valuable by itself. So I'd also recommend reading through those.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to.
Yep.
Leo, did you have some questions?
No, I was going to ask how many jobs this would create in the next 5 to 10 years, if you could elaborate on that.
I think one of the things that this ends up doing is allowing us to focus better on companies that are sustainable. So one of the things we have out right now that's going on in job creation is, for example, there are a lot of small launch vehicle companies out there that have a couple of employees, but they are, unless they are Rocket Lab or Relativity, they've been around for a little while and everything, they are not going to last. They are going to go out of business unless they pivot to something else. And so what this really does is allow us to be a lot more intelligent about where we focus our investment dollars into things that create sustainable jobs. Mm-hmm. Companies that I need to hire people because I really do have a business, as opposed to a startup that's going to, pay somebody for 6 or 8 months, run out of cash, everybody's stressed out, they have to go get other jobs in other sectors, and you've got yet another company, a zombie company in the industry. This, we think, will help prevent that and focused investment dollars and end up with sustainable and growing businesses. And I think that's kind of key.
Okay, cool. So how long how can this actually be adapted or support other ground side industries, which is kind of interesting.
I mean, one of the reasons we did this was because NASA really evaluates things based on metrics. They bubble things up from lower, and it really is, they summarize everything about a company down to TRL level. And that's how they measure everything. And they were really had no way of measuring whether or not the company that they were dealing with had a prayer of actually getting this thing into a product. And that's where this will help us as an industry focus investment dollars and focus effort where it has the highest return. And I think that's kind of the key, is we're putting a lot of money right now, whether it's SPACs or NASA or JAXA or ESA or anybody else. It's a little, especially AFWorks, money is a little bit of spray and pray. Throw money around and let those that survive. And I think the reason they're doing that is they really don't have the tools to evaluate a startup and the product they're trying to develop. And I think this will help focus some of those investment dollars.
Okay. I don't think that we have any other further questions, Michael, but I think we're going to be moving on to our next speaker. Michael, thank you so much for your presentation today. And again, if you can go ahead and drop your LinkedIn credentials here into the chat so we can continue networking. We're going to be moving on to our next speaker.